Hello, fourth grade. We are going to take a look at lesson 91 today. And so let's get into our lesson, kind of reviewing through some things and having some things that are new to us. So first of all, in our lesson, we're going to take a look at the place value of things. So the place value as we see it. We have the hundreds, the tens, the ones. Here's our decimal point there. And then we have the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths. So when we look at this, what I want you to think about is where that decimal point is. And we're going to take a look at the relationship between what's before it, what's after it, all that kind of stuff, okay? So let's take a look at what we have. All right, so we have the decimal point, which is right here. Now, if we look at that, we have the ones to the side of here, but the tenths over here. One thing you can think of is money. So if I have money, I know that this is the amount of dimes, or 10 cents that I have. These are the amount of pennies, or there's 100 of those in a dollar. So I can think of it as the tenths, the hundredths, and then what comes next is thousandths. All right. Now, if you look on the other side, of that, we have different numbers. And if you think about what you have here, you have the ones, right? That's the ones. Then we have the tens. And then we have the thousands. Or hundreds. Okay, so we have the ones, the tens, the hundreds. Now, what I like to do is think of it as a matching up. So if you think of the ones and the decimal matching up together, then what you have is just a mirrored image. The tenths and the tens, the hundreds and the hundredths, the thousandths and the thousands. We would have that match up all the way along here. Okay. So if we think of the decimal and the one matching up, then we have the tens and the tenths, hundreds, thousandths. So if we see what number is in the tenths place, always looking at this ending. If it has a THS ending, it's to the right of the decimal point. So here's our tenths. I can say the number 7 is in the tenths place. Okay, so let's go on to this page. So on here, what number is in the hundredths place? The hundredths. Well, this isn't the oneths. You don't have such a thing as a oneths. I have tenths, thousandths, hundredths, something like that over here. So where do they go? Well, let's see. The tenths, you put there, right? Because this is going to match up with this one. That one's going to match up with that one. So if I look at what number is in the hundredths place, the hundredths place is where the pennies would be, and that would be the number 1. Now there was a coin called a mill that was made, and that's where these thousandths place would be, right here. And we still see that with gasoline, the mill. Its value was so low that they stopped using it. So we had the dimes, the pennies, and the mills. And it was 1,000th of a dollar. And so it would take 1,000 mills to make $1. And so we have these numbers over here. What number is in the tenths place? The tenths place, well, that's right after the decimal point, so we have an 8 in the tenths place. And if we were going to put these labels back where they belong, let's go back to here. Tenths, I'll get that dot out of the way. Tenths, because it matches with the tens. Remember, the 1 and the decimal point match together. And then the hundredths, and then the thousandths. Okay, so tenths, hundreds, thousandths. Now, when you are comparing numbers, just like anything, we start with what's before the decimal point. what's before the decimal point. So what I want to look at is I want to look at what's before our decimal point. And yeah, we'll just stick with what we have. Okay, so what's before the decimal point? A 6 and a 6. So that means that we can't tell whether one is larger than the other one yet. So then we go to the first number after the decimal point. I have a 5, and I have a 5. Well, that doesn't change. How about a 9 and a 9? Well, that's the same. I have nothing here, and I have a 0 here. Well, 0 is the same as nothing, right? So if I have a 0, if I have 20 zeros, it doesn't matter because I haven't changed anything. I still have 0 of everything. So 6 and 59 hundredths is the same as 6 and 590 thousandths. There is no difference. The more zeros we add on, it doesn't matter. Just cross them out, it doesn't matter. So this would make it equal to each other. 6.59, 6.59, 0, there is no value to that at the end. You can add them to the end, doesn't matter. Okay? If I were looking at these two numbers, then I wanted to know which one was larger. I have a 6 before the decimal point. I have a 4 before the decimal point. 6 is greater than 4, so I would say that is greater than that. Even though this has more digits, it doesn't matter. It's, first of all, what's in front of the decimal point, and that's where you start to look. Now, when you're going to subtract here, we have 6 and 49 hundredths minus 4 and 372 thousandths. All right. Well, if I have a top number that or the number on top has a blank space here, that's like having nothing there, right? So we're going to put a 0 there. And I'm just going to kind of cross it, put a cross X out through it, just so you know that it's not part of the number that we originated, but it doesn't matter. We need that number. We need that 0 there. So we're going to say there's more on the floor, so we go next door. We cross out the 9, we make it an 8. Now we add 10, we break apart that one that we were given, and we add 10 to the number. We had 0 there, so now we have 10, because 10 plus whatever number we have. 10 minus 2 is 8. 8 minus 7 is 1. 4 minus 3 is 1. Decimal point in place. 6 minus 4 is 2. This is the key. You need to line up your decimal points. All right? Every number has a column that it belongs in. So we have to have those numbers in the right column. Okay? Let's switch the colors just to make it so that it's not so blinding on us. Okay? Let's try another problem like that. If we had 7 and 320, or just let's 7.32, minus 1.465. All right, we have one like that. I need a number up here, and I can add as many zeros as I want on the end of a number with the decimal point, not before the decimal point, but after the decimal point. And it doesn't matter, because it's all just nothingness. So I say, I have more on the floor, go next door, right? Cross out that 2, make it a 1. Now this becomes a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. More on the floor, so go next door. Cross out the 3, make it a 2. Add 10 to that 1, so you have 11. 11 minus 6 is 5. More on the floor, so go next door. Take 1 away, add 10 to what we had. 12 minus 4 is 8. Decimal point, 5. So we end up with 5 and 855 thousandths. Okay? All right. Let's see if we can answer this question. Which two numbers are equal? Take a look and see if you can figure out which two numbers you think are equal. Okay, do you have two choices in your head? All right, let's start taking a look at what we have. Now, like I said, the first thing we want to do when we compare numbers is to look at the numbers before the decimal point. I have that before the decimal point, that before the decimal point, there, and there. So if I look at what's before the decimal point, I have 41, 4, 41, 4, 13. I don't have to look any further because I only have two numbers that have the same amount before the decimal point, and that's those two. Now, if I were going to order them from least to greatest, my problem would be that these two are equal to each other, so I would have to have them in the same spot. No one work. But let's just take one out. Let's take this one out. No, yeah, let's take that one out. All right, so if we have these three and we have to order them from least to greatest, I look at the first numbers before the decimal point. I have a 4, I have a 41, and I have a 413. So if I were going to order them from least to greatest, I would have that number, and then the next number. Actually, they're in order that way. That's kind of funny. And then finally, the 413.4. Now, they're in order from least to greatest because there's a 4 before the decimal, a 41 before the decimal, and a 413 before the decimal. Okay? I want to just review a little bit about fractions here. If I have something like, let's say 0.37, and I need to write it as a fraction. When I write it as a fraction, I'm going to take the number that's here, 37. It has 2 numbers there, so I have to have 2 zeros here, and then the 1 in front of it to say it's 37 hundredths. Because remember, this is the tenths, and then this is the hundredths. I've seen some of us get a little confused with this, so I kind of want to bring that out. All right, the other thing is about our division process. Remember, it's divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then remainder. So just remembering when you have numbers like this, if I'm dividing it, how many 4s can I get out of 34? We have 8. That's the divide part. Mom, multiply. Roof times the door ends up on the floor, so 8 times 4 is 32. Sister, subtract. Have 2 left over here. We have a brother in town, so let's bring him on down. Brother has to go up and ask Dad questions. And remember, I said you can even think of this as one of these, right? If you're forgetting what you need to do next. How many 4s can you get out of 25? You can get 5, so that has to go above the number you brought down. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract, we have 5. No other brothers in town, so I have a remainder. Oops, what did I do there? Oopsie. That was a mistake, wasn't it? Because that should have been a 6 and a 24. Wow. I'm going to forget about what I just did there. I heard my dog bark and I started to get distracted. Alright, let's try that again. No distractions in the homework time, right? That's not good when we have our distractions. Alright, let's try it again. Let's do something like 6 and 5,480. Alright, how many 6s can I get out of 54? 9, that's Dad. Mom, 9 times 6 is 54. Sister, subtract. Brother, bring down. How many 6s can I get out of 8? That's the Dad part again. I can get 1, that has to go above the brother. Now, I'm doing multiply. Roof times the door ends up on the floor. There's our floor. Sister, subtract. I have 2. Brother, bring down. Brother in town, so bring him on down. He's going to talk to Dad. He's got to go back up there, so we have divide again. Like I said before, we can think of it like this. You don't have to write that in. I'm just saying that that might just kind of jog your memory if you're having problems knowing what to do. How many 6s can we get out of 20? We can get 3. 3 times 6 is 18. Sister subtract. We have a remainder of 2 there, because there's no more brothers in town, so we have a remainder of 2. Remainder has to be less than the number at the door. That was my problem in the last one. That's why I quick went down and did it again. All right. Now I'm more focused with dog not barking. All right. So that is how we do that one. I think the rest we'll just kind of review again. Remember, look at what's in the beginning to tell you which number is bigger. If there are zeros at the end, it doesn't matter. And then also our place values, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Say it out loud to you with yourself. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. Okay? A decimal is kind of that paired up with that ones, and then we have tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000ths, all that kind of stuff, just like we were going the opposite direction for the other one. All right, that is your lesson for today. You have a sheet to do, a Google sheet to do, Google form. So go ahead and get that done, and I hope you guys have a great weekend.